Thanks for joining us for Season 5 of the Service to School Stories podcast. I'm Sydney Mathis, your host and Chief Program Officer at Service to School. This season, we wanted to highlight some of our incredible alumni and dive deeper into their stories. You'll hear from a variety of student veterans about their journey from the military through the admissions process and onto campus. Guests will share how they overcame challenges, and we'll look back on their journey to give some advice along the way. Let's kick it off.
Alrighty, hey everybody, welcome to the Service to School series podcast. We're here in Season 5, so we're chatting with some student success stories. I'm Alex Dawson, I'll be the host today. I'll be chatting with Jasen Baker, who's a rising second year at Harvard Business School and a former Green Beret. I think pretty excited to hear Jasen's story today. I think a lot of our applicants will be able to resonate with a lot of different parts of his story. And I think we'll be able to give you kind of a great insight of the business school journey and what life's like at business school. I think to start off, I'll give a brief introduction of myself, who this random voice is, and then I'll pass it over to Jasen. All right. First off, I'm Alex Dawson. I'm actually currently the operations manager here at Service to School. To take a distant step back, I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad, majored in nuclear engineering. With that, I joined the nuclear Navy. I was in the Navy for about 6 years, did 2 years on a destroyer in Pearl Harbor, a year in Charleston, South Carolina, which is pretty amazing. And then spent my last 2.5 years doing a reactor overhaul on the USS George Washington, an aircraft carrier in Newport News. After my 6 years, I punched out, went to business school, just finished up at Michigan Ross, and I went the consulting route. I interned at Bain & Company last summer, and I'm heading back to Bain. In between graduating and going to Bain, I'm helping out Service to School in kind of an ops role, which means I get to do cool, exciting things like this podcast. So I'll hand it over to you, Jasen. Why don't you go ahead and give your background, an introduction all the way kind of leading up to the point where you made the transition to business school.
Sure. Well, thanks, Alex. It's great to be here, and I'm glad for this opportunity. I guess, where do I start? Born and raised in South Florida, and immediately after high school, I went to the University of Florida, where I did my undergrad, majored in criminology. And it really wasn't until about halfway through my undergrad where I kind of realized what I actually wanted to do after I graduated. I'd started reading a lot of books about World War II, about a unit called the OSS, or Office of Strategic Services, which are the predecessors to the Green Berets and also the CIA. That led me to reading some books about Green Berets, kind of from then until kind of contemporary. And from that point, I was enamored by their mission, doing unconventional warfare, working by, with, and through an indigenous force to overcome some kind of large adversary. So from that point on, everything was kind of devoted to pursuing that career. So I actually started talking to Army recruiters and was able to, roughly in my senior year of college, I signed a contract with the Army. It was an 18 X-ray contract, which essentially meant that I would have an opportunity at Special Forces selection should I, pass Army infantry basic training and then airborne school. So I was actually able to wait until after I graduated to actually ship to basic training. So that's what I did. I graduated in 2015 and went straight to Army basic training. I was fortunate enough to pass selection, go on to the Special Forces qualification course, where I spent the next really 3 years doing what they call the long course, given that my specialty was medicine, and ultimately graduated with the Special Forces tab and became a Special Forces medical sergeant. From there, I was stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord for the next 3+ years, working as an SF medic, and actually medically retired in 2022. Now find myself as a second-year student, about to start next week at Harvard Business School. So that's a little bit kind of my background and how I got to school. There's definitely a couple stories in there, the medical retirement piece that we can dive into.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to kind of first dive into is your transition. So you were medically retired. From what we kind of talked about previously, you weren't planning on leaving the military, and then some kind of happens. I'm sure so many emotions are probably going through your head. Can you want to talk through like how that process kind of happened, and really like how business school kind of came to mind, and what other options maybe you were considering when you were separating?
Sure. Yeah, I will start off by saying that I honestly had never considered getting an MBA. I honestly barely knew what an MBA was prior to 2 years ago. So this is all kind of like a new industry, new career field for me. the reason I decided to pursue an MBA was, kind of halfway through my training to become a special forces soldier, I suffered a heat stroke, as so many people in the Army do. And ever since then, started having some heart issues. I went to a cardiologist, got that checked out. They told me that I had a genetic heart condition that I'd been born with that really wasn't affecting me up until that point. But from there on out, it kind of started to progress and get a little bit worse. I was able to finish training, get a waiver, go on to that career. But really around 2021, 2022, things started getting a lot worse. It honestly became unsafe for me to do that job anymore. The high physical, emotional stress is took a toll on my body, and I started to feel it. So I was told by a couple of different medical providers that they would send me to a med board. So started that process early 2022, and honestly, that was probably that was the lowest point in my life. So much uncertainty. I'm married, was married at the time, and my wife, we just found out she was pregnant. So a lot of things to expect, like great things, but also I had no idea what I would do to kind of, feed them, clothe them from there on out. The one thing that I trained for so many years was kind of closed to me. And to be honest, the careers that I was thinking about, if I were to transition out of the military, would have been something physical like firefighting or federal law enforcement. I did not think about pursuing a desk job, and I still kind of don't, but I ultimately will. I can't rely on my body to be able to do the job I need to sustain myself and my family. So started talking to a couple friends. I had one friend that was also a medic. He had just gotten out. He had gotten into Wharton, their MBA program. I had no idea really what an MBA was until talking to him. And I was like, hey, if you can do it, I can do it. So honestly, from that point on, he convinced me. I started devoting all of my time, attention, resources to applying to MBA programs. And here we are, maybe 2 years later, starting my second year at HBS.
Well, yeah, glad it seems like it's working out well. So that's pretty nice. To kind of take a step back, I think it might help a lot of our applicants listening. How did you navigate the application process? So like, this is all happening to you so pretty quickly. You have this one buddy that's telling you, hey, you can do it. What was your process like? School selection? How the heck did you prep for the tests? That type of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I was super regimented. I had a process for sure. So I found out that I was medically retiring and needed to pursue this new career path probably a couple months before round one deadline. I had the goal of getting a couple applications in round one. Like I said, I had a process for this. The first thing I did was focus solely on test taking. I knew that was kind of like the biggest, barrier of entry for me. I, have a cool job, had some good experience, already did my undergrad. I knew that the essay and narrative and story would kind of, fill itself out, but I hadn't taken a standardized test in 12 years, and I had to honestly start from scratch, learn long division again. So I probably took 2 to 3 months and focused solely on the GRE. That was a test that I chose to take, but there's also the GMAT. And I studied anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day. And the only reason I could do that, I was still in at the time, but I was doing a command sponsored internship. So I had a little bit of free time to be able to devote to school. I was lucky enough to have that. Not everybody has that. So I just recommend taking as much time as possible you have to really grind it out, study for the GRE. I took it twice. The first time I did way worse than I did the second time. The second time was a score that I was honestly not even hoping for, but I was able to get. And that's what I went with. If I didn't do as good, I'd go ahead and take it one more time. So after studying for the GRE, taking the GRE, getting the score I wanted, I felt comfortable enough to start applying to schools. So I started looking at the schools that I wanted to go to. I sat down with my wife. We talked about locations, career outcomes, the cultures, the communities that are there, and narrowed it down to kind of an eclectic group. Wasn't necessarily solely based on rank. It was based on, again, all those factors. And we weighed the ones that are most important to us. I'd say probably location and culture fit, as well as kind of resources that are there for families. And ultimately landed on HBS for a lot of those reasons. But I guess stepping back, chose the schools that I wanted to apply to, and then started working on my narrative and essay. And I honestly reached out to the vets clubs of all those schools that I applied to work with one of the vets that were just like me, a year or two ago, to get those kind of like narratives, essays locked down before applying. And honestly, I devote a lot of my success to where I am today to those people that I reached out to and talked with along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I definitely want to like highlight again is to everyone kind of listening that's in the application process, reach out to the vet clubs. There's such a great give back culture in the veteran community, especially through the MBA process. Reach out to those vet clubs. And then the kind of advice I try to give for a test takings, yes, you need a long leeway time. Seems like you're pretty narrowed and regimented, but a lot of people do their best around like their third test take. And then some people actually like struggle with the GMAT. And then I kind of recommend if you're struggling with the GMAT, especially after 2 or 3 tests, you could try to switch to the GRE because they're very different tests. But yeah, man, you got into Harvard. What was that like? Could you imagine, when your buddy told you about B school for the first time that you were actually going to be going to Harvard Business School?
I cannot imagine it. And honestly, at first I did not want to go here until I kind of learned what there is to like, what it has to offer. It just wasn't, I'm not like prestige seeking. So that wasn't like the goal out of getting an MBA. It was to kind of reconnect with my family, have 2 years to explore career options, to meet a great group of people. And the reason I landed on HBS and why I was so happy with it is because they have apartments on campus. Like right now I'm living on campus. There's a playground that's 50 feet from my front door. There's so many other families that live around me. And I've just like connected with such a great group of people. Shocker, all of them are essentially vets with kids. But yeah, I mean, it was great because I when I found out I got in to really any school, I knew I'd be successful. But it was just stability, knowing where I'd be in the future is something that I was craving, especially coming off that kind of like uncertain time period of my life. So yeah, it was a great feeling for me and for my wife.
So you've just finished up your first year. Maybe you want to talk about like what life is like at business school. A lot of people listening might be considering business school, law school, going straight to the corporate life. They might just kind of want an insight about what it's actually like there. Maybe some of your favorite things, some things that maybe surprise you, that type of thing.
Sure. I don't know if it's only me that looks at it this way, but I like to say that an MBA program is kind of like a fairy tale land. You don't have a full-time job. You have commitments for sure. You need to do good in school. You need to learn. You need to get a job after. But you have, from a lot of these the veterans, service members that were working such high tempo jobs. You have so much time on your hands, and I get to spend that time with my family. You can choose to spend it however you want. Social, education, work, trying to learn as much as you can with your family, whatever it is, you have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose what you want to do with your time. And that's something that's so rewarding, as well as just kind of like having a breather. We worked really hard for me, close to 8 years. It's nice to just kind of take a step back, take a breath and figure out what I want to do, when I grow up, essentially. I guess something the best parts of business school to me are, first of all, reconnecting with my family, just having that time to spend with my daughter. And then the people I've met here. I have some great friends. We have family friends now. My wife has friends. My daughter has friends. It's just so cool to kind of like do this alongside great people. It's like a built-in friend group, similar to what we have when we join a unit or join the military. So it's a great transition, a great period in anybody's life. My wife is actually expecting, our second child. And we chose that for a reason, because it's such a great place to raise kids, raise a family. I wouldn't do that if it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard like someone refer to business school as fairy tale land quite like that, but I definitely do agree that it's a vacation from reality is kind of how I try to tell people. And during that 2-year vacation, there's just so much you can really do, and it's kind of on you to kind of live it up.
Yeah.
However,
Definitely.
I guess the one thing that's not quite a vacation, and the one thing that really people kind of go to business school for, is that career transition or the career progression. Curious, kind of like what your thoughts are when you're navigating that career world. How did you kind of determine what might be a good fit for you? I know you're kind of still in the thick of it now, so it might be helpful to kind of hear insight about what your thought process is when you're trying to figure out, what to do now in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. I'm still trying to figure it out. There's a lot of people that have already locked it in. They know exactly what they're going to do. I thought I did. I had a summer internship. It wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. And for that reason, I'm kind of just like opening the floodgates again, re-exploring some options. But I went into it pretty like, obviously I'm like kind of a process oriented person. I had kind of a process. I had a couple, maybe like 1 to 3 target industries and jobs that I was looking to pursue before starting the MBA program, kind of the summer before. Started networking with people, started talking to people in that industry, both vets and non-vets, to kind of get their firsthand experience with it. And I went into school having some idea of what I wanted to do. When I actually got to school, things start very, very fast, very quickly, like literally like first couple weeks, and now you're into recruiting. Especially if you want to do like the preformed pipeline like consulting or investment banking, you need to know that kind of right away. So have some idea of what you want to do, what you want to explore before you get there, but then also be able to kind of whittle down that 1 to 3 options into like maybe 1, maybe 2, because you need to be very targeted and very specific with both your time and who you talk to and the applications you're putting out. So I'm kind of going into the second year very similarly. I have like maybe like 1 to 2 ideas of what I want to do that I'll explore this fall, and then really get into it kind of like end of fall, and then beginning of spring on narrowing down to maybe 1 and then pursuing those job opportunities as I see them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was definitely good advice. And that's kind of like pretty much the standard advice I give a veteran that's approaching business school and they're starting in the fall is don't spend your summer killing yourself, but spend your summer actually like really thinking about what career interests you and where you want to live too. Because for like a lot of banking and consulting, you're actually like recruiting specific office locations. And so I think one of the worst things you could do is show up to school not really knowing anything about any of the career options or where you want to live because you just can be a little bit behind the game. So yeah, I totally resonate that spend the summer before school like planning out options. That way when you show up, there's just so many things to do. You can actually like get into it and be successful.
You brought up a good point, actually. I guess the way I look at it is like there's sort of a trade off you have to make. You have work life balance, so how many hours you're working a week. You have compensation and then geography. And like you can't get all 3 of them. They're not going to be exactly where you want them. So you have to figure out which ones are the most important and prioritize those.
Yeah. So is that how you kind of like you didn't do consulting or recruiting or investment banking at all? Is that kind of how you pictured that? You got a kid, you got another one on the way. You kind of valued time more than anything else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I would lean heavily on geography and work life balance as opposed to compensation. There's got to be some standard compensation that is adequate, but definitely oriented towards geography and a work life balance. Just given my priorities in life at this point.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think there's kind of like a bad rap that maybe every veteran going to business school needs to do consulting or investment banking. I think that's just it's a bad thing to say because there's just so many different options you can do after business school rather than investment banking and consulting. And I think a lot of the veterans, they kind of go into school thinking that like, oh, I have to do consulting, but they might not even like it. I think a lot of times they're unsuccessful in recruiting, or even if they are successful in recruiting, they're just not going to be happy there because they were never really, they never really wanted it to begin with. So I think it kind of sucks to see some veterans pigeonhole themselves in consulting or banking. I'm not sure if you kind of saw that as well with your friends.
I definitely saw that. Yeah, that's definitely something that we see here.
But one thing I'd love to chat about kind of like towards the second half or wherever we are, back third of this chat, is we kind of mentioned earlier that the vet giving back pipeline is amazing. So if you're an applicant applying to business school, like you should 100% reach out to the vets clubs at all those business schools because they just want to help you succeed and they just want to help you get into school. There's no other motive than that. And I think that same pipeline exists in pretty much every company or most companies that recruit MBAs. There's a vet contingent at every single company that wants you to be there. They want you to be successful in your career. And so just use those vet opportunities. I know for you, giving back to the vet community is a big passion of yours. You want to like maybe chat about your kind of different passion projects giving back to the vet community?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say there's sort of like three buckets of ways that I try to give back or try to get involved in, service members that are transitioning or veterans that have transitioned and are kind of looking for something new. I'd say the impetus for all of that has been, the challenge that I've faced as I transitioned out, not knowing how to navigate the system, not knowing how to go about the VA disability process, the educational benefits that are available to me, the career outcomes or career opportunities that are available to me, the ability to do like a skill bridge or a internship as you're getting out. So many things are so convoluted and just obscure that it's really hard for people to navigate. And I took that opportunity to learn as much as I could about it so that not only I can like set myself and my family up for success, but also help other people along the way. So I'd say there's a couple things that I kind of focus on. The first thing that I like to do is help veterans or transitioning service members navigate the VA disability process. I've helped kind of dozens at this point. I don't charge any fee. I just want to make sure that every veteran getting out is getting the healthcare they need. And honestly, a lot of the times the VA makes it difficult for that to happen. So you need to kind of plan in advance. I'm always willing to talk to any veteran or transitioning service member if they need it. I'm not an expert. I'm just, a guy trying to help other people like me. The second thing I really like to work on is just like helping transitioning service members or veterans navigate the educational process, whether it's like VR&E, post 9/11 GI Bill, how to think about it financially. What are both the outcomes plus the opportunity cost of school? Those are two big things that I've been doing for the past year and a half, really. And then lastly, Alex, you and I are working on a project to create a career summit for undergraduate veteran students, so that they have some early exposure to some of the career opportunities that are available to them out of undergrad. There's a lot of resources devoted to MBAs. I think there's less resources devoted to undergrad veterans. And that's something that me and you are trying to do right now.
Yeah, I like how you bucket it into three things. It's very business school of you. You're learning a lot over there.
Although I'm not consulting.
I guess like to pick one of your buckets. Yeah, it's crazy how many people have never heard of VR&E until I just like mention it in a phone call, and it kind of changes their lives. I'm a GI Bill guy myself, but I guess Jason, maybe you can explain VR&E a little better. But for instance, Voc Rehabilitation and Education, I guess, is maybe what it stands for. If you have a certain level of disability leaving the Navy, you can kind of qualify potentially for up to full tuition as well as housing allowance and stipend at private schools as well. I had a good friend of mine that was leaving the military, and he only had 50% GI Bill. And, he was really stressing about how is he going to pay for it. He's trying to do a 3-year program, a dual degree 3-year program. And he was already accepted in school, about to start school, had already like mentally prepared for being, $100,000+ in debt. And he like brought up maybe that he was getting disability or something. And I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't you using VR&E? And he's like, what is that? He immediately Googled it, looked into it, got accepted like a month later, and is now going to school for 3 years completely free. So I saved him like over $100,000 just because he had never heard of it. It's just like a word of mouth thing. I don't know if you want to talk about VR&E a little bit more, or maybe what you recommend to those people that kind of bring it up.
Yeah, definitely. It's so I'm not an expert, but I'm using it myself. That's how I'm paying for school. And there's probably a couple people that it applies to most. Like you said, your friend that had maybe, there's certain officers that get out that might not do enough time to get the full GI Bill. That's probably one bucket of people that it could be super helpful for. The other one would be let's say an enlisted veteran that after transitioning out of service, did their undergrad, did 4 years, used their post 9/11 GI Bill, but maybe doesn't have the job opportunities that they want to pursue and want to go ahead and try to get an MBA. I know several people like that. At that point, it's absolutely necessary because then they'd be paying out of pocket. And it's honestly not feasible for a lot of veterans to do. So But honestly, at the end of the day, if you go to a private school and the GI Bill does not cover it, like in my case, I'd have to pay like 40K out of pocket. It was an absolute no brainer for me. So you can go on to, I think it's a VA website. You could put an application in, and then you'd get paired up with a VR&E counselor. And at that point, they'd kind of like say if you are qualified for VR&E. I think the standard is like 20% disabled. That qualifies you for VR&E, but it's not that you can't just go and get it because you have 20%. You have to kind of make your case for it. But it pays for 100% of school. It gives you your BAH or MHA, however you want to think about it. Same as GI Bill. It also pays for a new computer, school supplies, and then honestly, a great benefit. Not only does it help you try to get a job with a couple resources that they provide, but it also pays for 2 months of BAH after actually finishing your MBA program, kind of like that transition period where you're still looking for a job or might not have that job yet, but are waiting to start it. It helps you pay for a little bit of housing. So there's so many benefits that it actually applies or adds over the GI Bill, but it's not a guarantee. It's not everybody can get it. There are definitely restrictions. It is a jobs program at the end of the day, run by the government.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's crazy how so much of this is just like learning how to play the game or like hearing it from someone else. A lot of the like little nuances, like understanding what VR&E is, you're never going to really know by Googling it unless you happen to be on like the right message board or maybe you chatted with the right person. And I think that kind of transitions into talking about the Enlisted Undergrad Career Summit that you mentioned that your team is definitely working a lot on. So much of like navigating undergrad in terms of getting like those really high level jobs is kind of playing a game. And if you don't necessarily know how to do it or haven't heard about the game, it's hard to get in there. So one thing your team is really doing, if you want to get into a little bit more, is really working with kind of top companies as well as our enlisted undergrad students at top schools to try to like meet in the middle and teach them how to play the game a little bit. You want to go into it?
Yeah, sure. Before that, I think you brought up a really good point, and I just want to give one piece of advice to anybody, unsolicited advice, but just like you said, you don't know until you like talk to somebody that can let you know what's available to you, just like your friend in VR&E. It's so important to just try to connect to as many people as possible that have gone through the process, have learned those lessons, like myself, like you have, and like so many more have. If you don't talk to those people and hear what they have to say, you're probably going to miss something. There's probably some benefit, some opportunity for you, some job maybe that you're going to miss. So definitely reach out. Almost every veteran that I've reached out to, whether it's at a company, in school, whatever it may be, has been so helpful and more than willing to talk. So that's my first piece of advice. To get into the career summit that we're planning, yeah, I think you're right. We have the MBA Veterans Career Fair. There, at HBS, I know we have like a vets club that holds their own career fair. There's resume reviews. There's networking opportunities. There's mentorship opportunities. It doesn't exist at such a high level for undergrads. So the idea would be to expose undergrad veterans that were enlisted to these job opportunities, to what a good resume looks like, to interview prep very early and often in their undergraduate career so that they can get these internships freshman, sophomore, or junior year that lead to really great job opportunities with these top companies. So putting them, first of all, doing a little bit of education and build some awareness, but then put them in contact with some of these vets clubs at these companies, to the recruiters that handle vets or undergrad recruiting, so that they have some of these opportunities that might not be available if we didn't put this career summit on.
Yeah, I think it's a cool product for like S2S to be helping with this, because they spend so much time and effort getting like really high caliber students into great schools. But the next step is, right now that you're in the great school, you need to get a great job to kind of continue on that career progression. And so I think this is hopefully going to be a perfect median for all those students to really land those great jobs and start building a pipeline of enlisted students getting into these schools. Because that's the biggest thing. Like once you start having a pipeline of students doing it, then those previously enlisted people in those companies will now be reaching out, and they'll be the ones leading the career fair. They'll be the ones recruiting them, and the cycle will just kind of go on its own at that point.
Yeah, as a mentor of mine says, send the elevator back down. So when you get to the point where you can then help people out, make sure you do that. So if we get a larger pipeline of veterans into these top companies, they're the ones, like you said, that can help out the kind of the future coming behind them.
And I mean, and that's like how I got into my company, like at the MBA level. It's just the previous veterans that have like recently done it themselves. They're the ones helping interview prep me and that type of thing that got me to where I need to go. So then once we get that started at the post undergrad level, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing maybe you wanted to plug, you do a lot with Enlisted ExFil. Like chat about that, what that is. I think a lot of the listeners maybe have heard of it. Maybe they haven't if they're kind of new to the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So Enlisted ExFil is just a Discord community. It's a group of active duty and veteran enlisted service members that are pursuing some type of higher education. It's pretty much MBA, but essentially we just kind of like a group of friends, a group of mentors, of people that have been there and done that, but that also are just starting out or just kind of exploring, so they can ask questions. They can hear stories and experiences from people that have already done it. It was created last year by a group of applicants that were applying to MBA programs that are in my year program, not at HBS, kind of all throughout some of the top schools. And it's been an incredible resource for myself, but also for hundreds of others. So I definitely recommend checking them out. The website is enlistedexfil.com. You just apply and then you can join the community.
Yeah, y'all are really doing awesome work over there. And then I guess we're almost towards closing. Maybe do you want to give the listeners maybe your 3 buckets again? Maybe like 3 big pieces of advice, closing remarks, maybe that you'd give someone that's kind of listened through the story so far.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I have any more buckets available, but like I said, I think the most important thing is to reach out to folks that are in an MBA program, pursuing the MBA, that are in the careers that you're interested in as early as possible, and just kind of like see where that goes. They'll connect you to more people, and it's kind of like the spiderweb effect, where you have like this huge network now of people that are willing to help you. And share so many amazing things. But also, I guess, to plug the MBA program, it's been such an incredible opportunity for me and my family. Here we are, the buckets. I get to reconnect with them. I get so much time with them. I'm not going to have this much time with my family until I retire, and however long that is going to be. And hopefully that's a short period of time. So it's been so great to just spend time with them. The second is you get a breather. You get 2 years to kind of just take a step back, decompress from everything you did in service, and then third, you have the chance to explore different career fields that you never had the opportunity to do. If you got a career you got a job right out of transition, you don't have the chance to explore. You don't know what you like. You don't know what you don't like. So it gives you the opportunity to do that. But also the career outcomes are obviously, like, you can look at any MBA website, believe what you want, but the career outcomes are pretty awesome regardless of where you go and what you do. So it just sets you up for success. It's I think a cheat code on life that these programs are essentially free to us. We actually get paid to go here, where everybody else is spending, $100,000 to $250,000 plus the opportunity cost to come here. We're getting it for free and actually getting paid. So I think it's a no-brainer. I am always available to talk to anybody that is interested, whether it's VA disability, education, benefits, MBA programs, careers, whatever it is, please reach out.
Awesome. Well said. Well summarized. Thanks, Jason, for coming on the podcast today. I think a lot of people really resonate with your story and hopefully come along the MBA journey with us too, because it was a heck of an amount of fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It was a great opportunity to be here and talk with you today.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more service to school stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.